we're gonna excuse the hair. It's still currently drying from my shower, and I didn't want to wait until it fully dried and then also like styled it, like straightened it. Quite frankly, we're rolling with it today. I had this suggestion on one of my last videos so I recently did a first and favorites by my favorite authors. So what was the first book that I read from them and what is my favorite? And then someone suggested doing that with tropes. So what was the first book that I read in a trope and what is my favorite book that I read in a trope? And I was like, that is so fun. I'm definitely gonna do that. And here's the thing, I actually think I could make like 2 parts to this video because I have already so many books. It's not gonna be like in-depth, long explanations of each of these books. It's gonna be like a little bit quicker. But I also think I'm gonna make 2 parts because there are certain tropes that I literally have sat on for like a whole week trying to think of like what is my favorite, and I can't pick a favorite. Like age gap, you're not gonna see age gap in here yet because I quite literally don't know what my favorite age gap book is. Do you know how hard that is to pick? And also I'm not allowing myself to overlap books for multiple tropes. So it's actually been a tricky video to try to get all of my answers finalized on, but I'm really excited about talking about this. I just think it's fun. And we're gonna go ahead and dive in. And what better trope to kick it off with than student teacher? Because as you guys know here, student teacher is probably my favorite trope. Obviously, like I love dark, forbidden, and taboo, but student teacher kind of falls underneath all of those, or like not maybe as much dark. And I consider myself quite the connoisseur of student teacher books, okay? I feel like I've read a lot of student teachers, but the very first one goes all the way back to The Unrequited by Saffron Kent. I read this one back in 2020. It is still a favorite book of mine. I've actually really been wanting to reread this one, and this one honestly could still be in the running for my favorite student teacher. This is a college professor and student, and basically Layla sees Thomas, becomes obsessed with him, stalks him, joins his class, and basically doesn't stop until he is hers. It's so good. I absolutely love it. But I would say my favorite student teacher is Sweet Dandelion by Macaulay Smelter. Now this one is technically a guidance counselor and student, but I'm still lumping it in here because it does get put under the student teacher umbrella. So this one is an emotional standalone, these are both standalone, romance between Danny and Lachlan. And Danny was in a school shooting at her prior school, and when she goes to this new one, she is set up with a guidance counselor in order to kind of help her through her grief, and it ends up being her romance with him. Super slow burn, super emotional. I love it. I love both of these. I also read this one in 2020, so I feel like, honestly, I have not read a student teacher book probably since, I want to say like 2021. I think probably the last one that I like really, really loved would that have been Voyeur, but that was so long ago too. I don't know. I feel like I have not found a student teacher book in years that I have been obsessed with. So, I mean, we got to take it back a few years ago for these. Next up, okay, we're skipping age gap because I couldn't think of that. We're going to go with reverse age gap, which I know that people like hate that term of being like reverse because it like shouldn't be, but I know, I get it. But also I'm just using that so you know. So reverse age gap is normally what people refer to when the heroine is older than the hero. And I could easily think about that because I have not read as many of those books as I have of like the age gap where the hero is older. So my first one that I ever read with that is The Pool Boy by Nikki Sloan. So this is the second book in the Nashville Neighbors series. So this was like a good start to me. I love the Nashville Neighbors series. I did like this book, and it's a best friend's son romance, and they also end up working together. Here's the thing, I liked this one, I didn't love it, and I was honestly not sure if I was sold on like the heroine being older and the hero being younger. I think specifically because like for me, you know, like we don't only read things that we're attracted to in books, but just prefer them like a little bit older. So in my books, I kind of feel that way as well. However, that was until I read Mercy by Sarah Kate, and I was like, you know what, maybe I've been doing this whole thing wrong, because this one follows Bo and Maggie, and it's another best friend's son, but it's also a spicy club romance, and it's a dom-sub relationship, but Maggie is the dom and Bo is the sub. I loved everything about this book. I haven't shut up about it since I read it. I don't think you guys are surprised when I said this trope, if you watch my channel, that this was going to be the book that I picked for that. It truly is a god tier book for me. I love it so much. They truly have such like a deep connection on top of like uncovering things in each other and with themselves. It's beautiful. I love it. Hockey. This was another one that was kind of tricky because I have read a lot of hockey romances and I love so many. I would say out of like all of the tropes, I feel like I probably have the most like 5 stars across the board in terms of hockey romances. I've read so many, I love so many, and it all kicks it back off with The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This was one of the earliest romances like I ever read in my reading journey. I read it back, I think either at the end of 2019 or the very beginning of 2020. I have not looked back since reading these. I remember I checked it out from my library. It had the little ab cover on it, and I just became completely and utterly obsessed. So this one follows Garrett and Hannah, and it is a hockey student, college, tutor, kind of like friends to lovers romance. I love everything about these two. I've reread this book, I think 3 times since then. It stands up for me each and every time. I'm still such a huge fan of it, and it's still one of my favorites. However, I am going to go with The Mistake as my all-time favorite. This is the second book in that series, and they are companions, so you do see John Logan, who is Garrett's best friend and teammate in this book, and this one is his romance with Grace, and it is like a second chance. Oh, he does some good groveling, and again, a hockey player, and him and Grace kind of have an accidental meeting, hit it off. They kind of get to know each other. He fucks up, and then he wants her back later on. Both these are so good. The entire Off-Campus series I love, but then I also love like Hidden Scars by Annie Jackson. I love the Vancouver Wolves series by Odette Stone. I love Shattered Obsession by I love so many. I mean, like, this kind of shelf behind me is mostly hockey until we hit Long Shot right here, and then we get into basketball and other sports, but otherwise these are all hockey romances because I just love hockey romances so much. Next up, Billionaire. So this was hard because once again, I've also read tons of billionaire romances, but the first one that I ever read, where is it in my stack here now? Where are you? Here you go. Bared to You by Sylvia Day. So I read these back in 2019. So now 5 years ago. So these were some of, again, my earliest romances. And so I never like read 50 Shades back when it was like in the big craze, because I think I was a freshman in high school back when when I think the first movie came out. No, or was it just talk about it? I was in high school back when these all came out, and I was just like not reading books in general. Like, I was just like, I hate school, I hate books, I hate everything. So I never read any of those. But then when I was starting to get into romance, I found these. I read them. I loved them. I've done a reread on this series since then. I still like it. Here's the thing. Is it a favorite of all time for me anymore? No, but I really enjoyed these books and kind of like what they did for me. And also like the billionaire trope, and also it's got BDSM in it, so it does kind of give like those 50 Shades vibes. So our heroine in this one, she starts a new job, and when she arrives at the building, she runs into this one man, and of course he is getting across. He like owns everything, and he instantly kind of becomes obsessed with her, and it ends up being their romance for 5 books. I also love series that like follow the same couple for multiple books, so that really like jumpstarted my love for that. But my favorite billionaire, here's the thing. I feel like it's hard with billionaire. It was hard to pick one because there are so many other tropes that go into billionaire. Like I feel like I've never just read a book where it's straight up billionaire, but I think I gotta go with Anna Huang, and I couldn't pick. So I picked both of my favorite billionaires off of my shelves, Twisted Love and Twisted Lies, the first and the last book in the Twisted series, interconnected standalones. This one also could have been in the running for Brother's Best Friend, but again, I was like, I feel like Alex is more billionaire than Brother's Best Friend vibes in this. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but whatever, this is my video. So this one is a Grumpy Sunshine billionaire romance where our heroine, her older brother is leaving the country to go do some medical work, so he enlists his billionaire best friend to kind of help watch over her. And let me tell you, Alex is willing to spare no expense when it comes to Ava. Absolutely love it. And then Twisted Lies. So our heroine in this one, she needs a place to stay. He owns an apartment complex, and he ends up giving her discounted rent in order for her to live under his roof. And he helps protect her. And once again, no expense will be spared when it comes to this man. I love both of these guys with my entire heart and soul. Anna Huang, you did magic with these two. And she just does billionaire romances so well that, yeah, they both had to be in it for that trope. Now, boss employee. So I actually, when I was going through, so I used my reading journal for this because I have it back through 2020 of when I read these, and I was like, I genuinely cannot remember what the first boss employee romance was that I ever read, and I had forgotten about it, and that is T.L. Swan by, or not T.L. Swan, what is it? Mr. Masters by T.L. Swan. So this one is a nanny romance, and our heroine, I think she lies on her resume in order to get a job like abroad as a nanny for this one family, and then when she shows up, she realizes that the guy that she's interviewing with, I think she thought that he was going to be like a wife, and it was not. He's the single dad, and I think, did his wife die or something? Honestly, it has been literal years since I've read this book, so I don't quite remember, but it's a boss and nanny employee romance, and I remember really liking it. I really enjoyed it, and very fun. And then my favorite, though, has to go to the Wolf Hotel series by K.A. Tucker. So once again, this could have fallen into Billionaire, but I do think then that the boss employee aspect of this one is like the most overarching trope. So this one follows Henry and Abby. So after a breakup with her college boyfriend, she is ready to get away from all of her friends and family and all of the expectations that she has back home in her small town. And she ends up going and getting a job in Alaska at the Wolf Hotel. And when she arrives there, there's a mix up with her job. And instead of being in the landscaping crew, she ends up becoming the assistant to Henry Wolf, who is the owner of the Wolf Hotel's like enterprise, whatever company. And he's obviously very wealthy, and he's attracted to his new employee, and Abby is as well, but she also is like nervous. Anyways, this ends up being 5 books. Love the shit out of these. These are so bingeable. They're all like around the same length too. I think they're maybe like 260-ish pages. 282. So quick, super fun boss employee. And again, got the Billionaire vibes because spend money on her. Thank you. Next up is Why Choose. So I have read this, again, is a trope that I have read quite a few in, and I was like, oh, what was the first one? Because honestly, in my head, I was like, was it Groupie by C.M. Stunch? Was that the first one that I've ever read? But no, it in fact was Echo by Seven Rue. And again, this one was years ago. And this one, so our heroine, she doesn't speak, and I think she's like lost in the woods, or she's like running from something, and she stumbles upon this cabin, and she ends up breaking in, and she's living there for a while, and then these 3 guys all show up who use this cabin to like hunt and stuff, and they're like out there for their hunting month or whatever that they go on. And when they arrive, they're like, who are you? But also like, who are you? And it ends up being her romance with all 3 of them. But my favorite one that I have read, which technically this one would be like a poly relationship, but again, it often gets lumped under Why Choose, which is why I'm including it, because it is, I haven't shut up about it, The Losers Duet by Harley LaRue. My favorite found family and romance world. I will never get over these 5 characters. So technically everyone's together, and normally like in a Why Choose, it's like they're all with their parents, but there can be like sword crossings. That's why I feel like this is fair to include in here. So this one follows Jess, Manson, Lucas, Vincent, and Jason. And it is basically Jess bullied them all back in high school. She was like the rich, popular cheerleader, and they were the 4 quote-unquote losers. And now as adults, she ends up getting into a bit of a debt with them to have them help fix her car, and there's a way that she can repay them. And it is so good. There's so much mutual healing, so much like emotional depth to these characters, so much character development, but also the spice is absolutely insane. Literally the spiciest series I've ever read in my entire life. I love it. It starts with The Dare. It's a little prequel novella, and then it's Losers Part 1 and Losers Part 2. I love everything about this. I've already talked about it a million times, so I will shut up, but literally go and read it if you haven't already. Now, step siblings. So again, a favorite trope of mine, and my first one ever that I read by this was Stepbrother Dearest by Penelope Ward. And I distinctly remember when I was reading this book, because it was right before COVID hit, and I had checked it out from the library, and I remember I was dog sitting for someone, and I like had it over at their house. And then I remember being like, they better not come home. Like, I better not leave this. That way when they come home, they'll see it. Because it was like a shirtless man on the cover. And I was so like, oh my gosh, I can't let anyone know what I'm reading. I was still like back in that, where now I'm like, hey, look what I'm reading. But back then I was like, oh my gosh, the scandal. And especially Stepbrother. I remember like I had told my friends about it, and they were like, what are you doing? Now they're like not surprised by any of the shit that I drop on them that I'm reading. I quite literally don't remember anything about this book. I really don't. All I know is that it was a step-sibling romance, and I'm pretty sure like they see each other and maybe they have a relationship or something, and then they separate, and then they end up coming back together. Maybe like one of the parents dies and they come back together again in the future. And I think he has a secret tattoo for her. But like I said, my memory on this is super, super hazy. It was literally right before COVID. It was one of the last books I read before COVID hit, and I got a Kindle. I don't know, but this was my starting point. But my favorite is, and yes, I'm including it in here, is Always Been You by QB Tyler. This is technically adopted siblings, but like, come on, I'm including it in here. This involves James and Gabrielle. It's an age gap, and Gabrielle was adopted by James's family when she was 2. And when she grows up, her and James, like, she always had like a great relationship with him, but obviously like nothing ever happened. He goes off to college, he goes off and is living his life, and then when she graduates, she ends up moving to New York City, where he's living and working. And when she is at school there, then she starts seeing him again. They start getting reconnected and they start to have feelings for each other. It's so good. I, once again, have talked about this book all the freaking time. If you've been here, you're probably sick of hearing me talk about it, but if you haven't read it yet, you need to. It's super quick, it's super hot, it's super fun. There's sneaking around, there's all the good like forbiddenness of it, and yeah, I love the step sibling trope. It will forever and always be like a favorite of mine. A taboo, I couldn't come up with a favorite, so we're gonna have to wait for that one. Dark, once again, this is so hard because there are so many. I probably read, I bet like 50% of the books that I read are like dark romances or could be categorized as dark romances. So it's so hard to be like, this is my like saying a favorite. So any of these favorites are always subject to change, or there might be some that I like forgot about, but I do remember the first romance that I would classify as a dark romance that I ever read was Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. Again, this was when I first got my Kindle and I downloaded Devil's Night series. It was after I read Birthday Girl and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to dive in. And I remember reading this and being spooked because I remember when, it's not a spoiler here that I'm about to say, but there's just a scene where Rika looks out her driveway and she sees, I think is it Kai and Damon like standing there after they like left a knife in her room and they're standing out in her driveway with their masks on. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, this is terrifying. And like, they're so mean to her. Little did I know what kind of shit I would be reading now. But so this one follows Rika and Michael, and it's a boyfriend's older brother revenge romance. So basically Michael and his 3 friends kind of run this town, and they have this thing called Devil's Night every year. And one year on Devil's Night, 3 of them end up getting arrested and going to jail. They all blame Rika for it. And then now, years later, the 3 of them are out of jail and they are going to get their revenge on Rika. But Rika has always been into Michael, and yeah, he uses that to his advantage to get back at her. Listen, love it. Forever and always still a favorite of a dark romance. Not my favorite in the series, but it was the first. And here's the thing, this could be recency bias, but this is also my favorite book that I have read this year so far. Hold me to it, this is gonna be number 1, although technically I am reading God of Fury right now, and y'all, I don't know, it might pass, but I'm currently putting God of Wrath by Rena Kent as my favorite dark romance. Now here's the thing, again, dark romance has so many facets within it. Like, I even have a guide to dark romance of like levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because there really is such like a range in dark romance. But I'm choosing this one because it does fall under that, and I can't stop thinking about this book. If you follow me on Instagram, you already know I haven't shut up about the Legacy of God series since I've been reading it. This one follows Jeremy and Cecily. It's the 3rd book, and this is a 2nd generation series, and it follows these 2 powerful colleges full of all of these mafia, old money, rich people who send their kids to these schools, and Jeremy is the heir to the Russian mafia, and Cecily is another like old money student there, and she ends up gaining the attention of Jeremy, and he ends up stalking her, and there's so much more to it, but like I said, this is not like an in-depth video, and I'm going to talk about it again in my wrap-up. I love the hell out of this book. Oh my god, Jeremy is not even like morally gray. He's pretty morally black, but oh my god, I love him. Like, if I thought Michael was mean to Rika in this, he has nothing on this series. But yeah, I'm putting that one as my current favorite dark romance. Let's see. Rockstar. Where is my Rockstar? So my first ever Rockstar book that I read was Lick by Kylie Scott. So again, I remember checking this one out from the library and bringing it home and being like, once again, like, oh my gosh, I have to hide the cover because it was like a naked man on it. And this was again one of my first ever like romances that I read, and I still to this day love it. I'm pretty sure this one, it's a married in Vegas, like they wake up in Vegas and they're married, right? And then it's kind of like, what are we gonna do? And it's the lead guitarist of this popular band, and then it's 4 books. I actually would like to do a reread. I wish I could find them on audio because I would love to reread them. But anyways, got me introduced to the Rockstar trope. Y'all know how much I love Rockstar, clearly. I mean, can you see Take My Hand up there? You can see it a little bit. I love the Rockstars. I know not as many people love Rockstar, but I will forever and always be a hoe for that trope. And my favorite Rockstar book of all time is The Words by Ashley Jade. This one, our hero and heroine, they meet when they are in high school, and she ends up tutoring him in order to get him to graduate high school, and he's in a band even then. They're together, something happens, they break up. Now years in the future, she gets hired by his band to come on and kind of be his babysitter because he is spiraling. If you want a sad, broken, moody, broody bad boy, that is Phoenix right here. I absolutely love and adore him. And if you want a heroine that is not going to be a doormat and she is going to stand up to him, but also like can't help but be so down bad for him at the same time, but not forget that he broke her heart, Lennon is amazing. I love this book so much. It was a top book when I read it, back in 2021 or 2022? When was this even published? Gosh, I forgot that I have this one signed. Oh, Ashley Jade was so sweet. I met her at Book Bonanza and she was genuinely one of the nicest people I've ever met. She was very quiet, but she was literally so fucking nice. Okay, 2022 was when I read this. Still a favorite. Mafia, no surprise. My first ever Mafia book that I read was Bound by Honor by Cora Riley, and I have never looked back. And you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and put this up here because y'all already know it's coming. My favorite is Twisted Pride by Cora Riley. So this is the beginning of the Born in Blood Chronicles, and this is the third book in the Kimura Chronicles. They are series that have characters going interconnected between the two of them. I have an entire guide to Cora Riley books on my page if you are curious or confused on her reading. Or this is a marriage of convenience book between the head of the New York Mafia and a princess of the Chicago Mafia, and it's a bit of an age gap. And then this one is a captive romance between another princess of the Chicago Mafia and the head of the Las Vegas Mafia. He kidnaps her on her wedding day, and I love both of these books. These are my two favorite couples in both of the series. And then fun fact, in the spin-off, in the second generation series, their son and their daughter end up getting married, and that's really fun too. I love both these books. I've talked about them enough. If you really love old school Mafia vibes, read those. Very much like Godfather energy, which I love in Mafia books. Don't get me wrong, I love my like modern ones, but nothing tops those. Okay, you know what? We are getting like really down to it. So we'll save Brother's Best Friend. Let's just do 2 more. We'll do Toxic because after. This is where it all started for me. As you can see, these books are beat up. Is this one that I took to get signed? I did. I took this one to Book Bonanza. Here's the thing. These are where it all started for me. So this is how I got my start reading romance. I worked at Family Video, shout out Family Video, RIP, for 7 years, and we got the first after movie in. And when we would get the movies in, you got to like process them because we would get them in on like Wednesday or Thursday, but then we wouldn't be able to put them out until the following week on Tuesday. So we got to do what was called pre-streeting, where we could like check them out and take them home ourselves before they got out on the shelves. And I remember when after came through, I was like, oh, this looks like interesting. I'm gonna take this home and watch it. I did, and I was like, what is this? And then I found out that it was based off of a book. So then I immediately checked it out from my library and I devoured this. And I haven't looked back. I read the after series, I think within like a week. I couldn't put them down. I was utterly obsessed. All of my love for toxic romance can be traced back to here. I mean, obviously in like other things that I love too, like movies and things, it can be traced farther back, but truly like for book wise, Hard and Tessa are the epitome of toxic romance, but I still love them. I still have a soft spot for them. I've reread these books time and time again. I mean, they are like literally, I don't break my spines anymore, but like at the time I literally couldn't care less, and I was like jerking these around my house. Like I can't stop reading them. I love it. It's a toxic college romance. Everyone already knows about this basically at this point. But my favorite toxic romance, which again, I'm like, this could fall under so many other categories, but I had to find a way to sneak them in, and that is Balance by Lucia Franco. The Off Balance series is a coach athlete toxic romance. Rhea has dreams of going to the Olympics, and the current gym that she's at isn't going to cut it, so she begs her dad to send her to another gym. And when she arrives, Kova is her new coach, and it is obviously very forbidden. It's an age gap. He has a girlfriend. They are so toxic with each other. Let me tell you, it follows them for 5 books, and they don't even begin to start getting it together until maybe the 4th one. I mean, they're together by that point, but it is messy. They do things to hurt the other. They retaliate. It's amazing. I, once again, talked about this series for almost, I probably don't go a month on this channel without talking about this series. That's how much I love it, but truly they are the epitome of toxic romance. And last thing I'm going to do is fan fiction, because I do read some fan fiction here and there. I don't read a lot of it, but the first one that I ever read was Fix Your Attitude by Casanovella. So this one was a Kylo Ren fan fiction that I read years ago, and I think this one was on, I don't remember, it wasn't on AO3. What was the website called? Was it Wattpad? Was it on that? I don't remember. It was my first fan fiction, and I remember at this point I was like, I don't know. But it was a lot of fun back when I read it. But my favorite, which is truly a masterpiece in literature, okay, is Manacled by Sen Lin Yu. This is my favorite fan fiction I have ever read. I don't see another fan fiction ever topping this. This is a Draco and Hermione fan fiction that's like Harry Potter meets Handmaid's Tale. It's actually getting traditionally published finally. She's like obviously having to change things, so it's not like Harry Potter, but it's getting traditionally published. It's gonna be called Alchemized. I think it comes out next year. I will for sure be reading that, and I'm so excited to be able to like financially support Sen Lin Yu, because obviously like fan fiction you can't make money off of. And oh, I love this. So basically the order has lost, right? It's the Order. I'm not super familiar with Harry Potter terms, so I think it's the Order. That's who Hermione was fighting for. Their side lost and Voldemort has won, and now basically he is selling off women in like prisoner of wars, like handmaid style, and Hermione is one of the last remaining members of the Order, and she is given to Draco in order to help like pull out the last remaining like Order secrets of her mind and be his like handmaiden. But it's like 1,000 pages. It's utterly gut-wrenching. It is, but like I said, it's literally one of the most masterful things I've ever read in my entire life. I tell like everyone to read this. I even told my sister-in-law to read this because she's a Harry Potter fan, but she's not like a romance reader. And honestly, this does not really have, like, yes, it's a romance, but it's not like a romance like a lot of these ones are. Truly phenomenal. Literally the most phenomenal thing I've ever read in my entire life. It's so, so, so good. And yeah, I tell literally everyone to read it. So anyways, that's where I'm gonna stop for today. I obviously have tons more tropes on this list, but this video is long, so we're gonna cut it here. So anyways, like I said though, I can definitely do a part 2. But anyways, that is it for today's video. I think next week is already chat, chill, and get ready with me, wrap up, and then TBR time. Dorian, what are you doing? What are you knocking over up there? He's on my desk. Anyways, that's what you can expect next week. But anyways, that is it for today's video, and I will see you when I see ya.